Distinguished gathering today. It is my honor and privilege to stand before you and extend my heartfelt greeting to all of the esteemed participants over here. My name is Binita, and I work as a Chief of Division for the Climate Change Adaptation in the Ministry of Forest and Environment. So without taking much time, let me quickly run through the overall scenario of today's event. At first, there will be a brief presentation on the concept and results, followed by the short video documentary. And then will be followed by a group prominent panel discussions representing all the government delegates, international research experts, climate financing institution, and the community representative. And we will try to conclude and moving forward. So without taking the much time, I would like to formally open this session, and I would like to invite Mr. Muktiram Acharya, Chief of Climate Finance Section from the Ministry of Forest, to share his welcome remarks. Sorry? Yeah, yeah, I told her that, no? To share his welcome remarks through which we can view the path forward. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Just first of all, I would like to welcome you all, the distinguished participants, and also the panelists who are going to discuss here. Actually, according to the session, I was all the presentation and also the panelist discussion, and then I will speak from the part of the NDA, because I am speaking here from Ministry of Finance of Nepal, and I am also the NDA for the GCF and also the operation focal point for the JEP. Yes. Here today, first of all, I would like to appreciate for all of you for this gathering here to speak about the global risk reduction in Nepal. And also, as you know, that in Nepal, that the globes, if you see the globe risks, there are the 47 lakes are the very critical. Among them, 21 are in our country, Nepal. So, and we have worked on 2 lakes before. Now they submitted the proposal to the GCF to lowering the lake, or the mitigating the risks of the 4 lakes, and still we have the 15 lakes to work together. Actually this is, though this is the welcome remarks, but being speaking from the Ministry of Finance and the NDA, so I have to share some of the points here, because I could not sit in the pool with the adaptation fund, because we are sourcing the funds and the possible windows. I would like to request the colleagues from here, the Global Climate Fund GCF here, that we have already submitted the proposal and for the globes, and we would like to request to expedite the process for the approval, and also the to see in the priority for Nepal to work on this, the possible risks of the 15 lakes. And also just for all the stakeholder, the DSM is here, and all the EC mode, and from the Bhutan also. So we will like to request just the WMO, because the early warning system is the major challenge and issues, and due to the the vulnerability that the livelihoods are in the risks in the downstream zones. Here from my side, because I am not the technical person of the globes and lakes, so I could not know the technical issues of the early warning system, and also the response and communication, WMO, ITU, or so on. But I am very serious to mobilize the resources from the part of the NDA. So it's my humble request to that the discussion will be very fruitful, and will find out the issues and raise the issues which are the critical to be addressed. And my point in nutshell is that 2 points. One is from the part of the donor, then we would like to request to, expedite the process which we have already submitted, and also see the Nepal, or provide the Nepal for the special, the attention to mitigate the risks of these globes. As I already mentioned that almost 21 lakes are in Nepal, which are very critical. And another thing is that it is not the national issues, it is the transborder issues. Like some lakes are in the Bhutan, some in the Tibet, and some in Nepal, and some in the Pakistan. So I would like to request for the DAEs and also the AEs of the GCF to work with the collaborating with the multi-country project. Like Bhutan, Nepal, and Tibet, we can make such project, then we can work together to, to mitigate the risks also. And also request for the national agencies to, for upgrading the database, also for this like WMO. Work with the DHM that the upgrade and establish the database so we can make the good project to address the risks of those globes. And again, just I would like to welcome you all on behalf of the government of Nepal and all the organizers here. And as working in the climate desk in the Ministry of Finance, I already said that the NDA of the GCF and also the OFA, operational focal point of the GF. So it is very hard to challenge filling the gap, because as we see the NDA and NDC, we have the billions of gap in the funding, but we are receiving only millions from the different windows. So it's challenging to address the such issues. To be highly attentive risks of the Nepal due to the globes risks, and from this discussion we will get the takeaway to how can we go a future to address such issues. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mukti sir, for your welcome remarks and giving some information regarding the adaptation fund, and as well as pointing us for the way forward in climate financing in near future. And then I would like to request Dr. Rajan Bhattrai, the Deputy Director General from Department of Hydrology and Meteorology, Government of Nepal, for his opening presentation and videos to set the stage for the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Bintaji. All the audiences and panelists. I will have a very short, not very short, but I try to be brief because we have to discuss and we are already late. So I will share some of the experiences that we have done so far for the glove reduction, risk reductions, and some of the early warning system that we have set up in some of the glove rigs projects. And I will also share some way forwards, and hope our discussions will be in line with the way forward that I put forward. So these are some trends that I have shown here. The higher Himalaya and the high mountain ranges are very vulnerable to the climate change. We have already known that, and the maximum temperature is rising with a very annual increment is quite high. We have seen that in the higher Himalayas, 0.086 degree per annum is going up. So this means it triggered the many hazards in the higher Himalayas and also to the downstreams. So these are the events that I want to share. These are some of the disaster typology, and one of the a big disaster that we faced is the avalanches and the landslides and the floods. So these are the events that is more frequent, evident in Nepal nowadays. So if we see some of the impacts of the glacier lakes due to the warming world, is the glacier lakes areas in major basin in Nepal has been increased with about 10% in figures, and if we see the glacier areas, then it has been decreased by 24% from around 1980s. And so if we see some of the very high risk glaciers, that Imja and Trakerding glaciers, so we can see a very large decreasing trend per annum. So these are the features of Chorolpa and Imja that we have worked in previously. So we can see that there was a very significant increase in the areas of Chorolpa from 1950 to 2000. But however, there is a support from the different agencies that we try to minimize the risks of these two glacier lakes to some level. So now, after 2000, we can see that the Chorolpa is in the same levels is going on. So we try to minimize the risks from these major glacier lakes, risks of the glacier lakes. So I can show one of the events that we faced in 2016 in the Botekosi. It's a beautiful, but collapse, and which is not inside the Nepalese territory. The gulf happens in the Chinese territory of Tibet, and that devastating gulf events have this devastating impact on the hydropower projects in the. So even with the very small size, we can see that the size of the glacier lakes is only 0.01 kilometer square, and that caused the very high devastating impacts in the projects like this. So I just want to show one example over there. So in this case, we try to have some good practices from the example of Chorolpa and Imja. So there are the three main steps we have to follow for the good practice. One is we need a very science-based evidence. So science and the people knowledge from the multi-hazard risk assessment is necessary. So we need a very good coordination and linkage and networking for the science-based evidence. And with that science-based evidence, we need to make we need to policy formulations to mainstreaming the climate risk management in the sectoral planning and processing. And after that, we have to implement our projects in terms of the hardware and software, and also the adaptive measures. So these are some of the activities that we have done for the Imja lakes recently. So these are some works doing before we worked in the Imja lakes. So there are some research works is going on. And from our intervention, we try to lower the lakes by 3.4 meters, and there are some hardware structure, we have seen that, followed by some early warning systems in the downstream of the river systems. So there are the mainly the 4 features of the early warning system that we try to accommodate in these projects. So one is the systematic collection of the data and undertaking the risk assessment in the Gulf, and we try to develop the hazard monitoring and early warning services, which is centralized in our office, and we try to communicate these risks and information to the locals, and try to build the national and community response capabilities. So these are the 4 major elements that we try to incorporate in our Gulf risk reduction activities. So this is the community-based flood warning systems that we have developed and implemented. So in the upper parts, we can see the glacier lakes, and followed by in the downstream these are the points where we try to have the early warning systems to the community below. So what we learned from this activity is lake lowering is a very costly means. So So we need more resources for these activities, because working in the higher Himalaya is not so easy task, you know. And also so engagement of all the possible stakeholders is necessary. So we try to engage the Nepal Army as well in working in the higher Himalayas. And the people's participation is very essential for the community-based early warning systems. And building community-based disaster risk management institution is very, very necessary. So we try to make a very small, disaster response groups in the downstream, so that they can learn how to respond with the if there is some Gulf events happens. And the non-structural measures along with the structural measures, the both is necessary for the Gulfs. So we cannot have only one and having to reduce the Gulf risks. So upstream and downstream watershed management is also very, very necessary. And and another thing is we need to have the very good climate information and knowledge. So research in the higher Himalaya is a very key to reduce the risks of the Gulfs. So I want to put forward some of the way forwards. So that's why how we can have a panel discussion as well. So one is we need to have very continuous monitoring in the higher Himalayas, so that we can build the scientific knowledge what is going over in the Himalayas. And we need the collaborative effort in all sides of the government, from the local government to the national government, and also the international partner is necessary. We need to follow the structural as well as the non-structural measures, for example, like the early warning systems. And the transboundary collaboration is very, very necessary. As I already showed one pictures that some Gulf events happens in the upstream of the Himalayas also triggered such a disaster damage in the downstream, as I have shown in the picture. And the private sector proactiveness is also very necessary, because there is a huge investment. The private sector has a huge investment in hydropower and so many infrastructures. So their initiatives for the early warning is very, very necessary. And recently we have some projects in the upper Arun where we try to incorporate all these phenomena in one single project, incorporating the private sector as well. And the capacity development in the risk reductions for all sides of the government and the local people is very, very necessary. And we need to replicate these efforts, because we have more than 20 such type of the potentially high risk glacier lakes. So we need to replicate these efforts to the other glacier lakes as well. And national and international resources for the adaptive and resilient society is necessary, because from the very beginning I said that resource is necessary for the adaptations. So thank you, and wish you all the best for the safer Himalayas. Thank you very much. There is a small video clip as well we have. Let's.
That sits in the shadow of Mount Everest for more than 5 years. It's about an hour ride from Kathmandu to Lake India, and the only way to get there is by helicopter, unless you want to walk for a few months. The beauty of the lake comes from its sustainment. The glaciers around the lake are melting due to climate change, and its level keeps rising.
Unfortunately, like many parts of the world, Everest is demanding its outlet to agriculture. And climate change means that the glaciers are melting, because while we have the peaceful mountain and these beautiful lakes, it's enough we have a shake of the crust of the earth. Enough we have nothing for that lake to just burst out.
The Indian lake has risen dramatically over the past several years, and they are to the Down in Tadakoshi, that fear is not far from the minds of people. 4 years old was just a little girl, but the memory is deep.
I come from the town. I mean, it's the house again. Or the young people play the yeah, but also the city, yeah, the city. Here is how the hours 6 hours of this. That's something here. And the other is the principal on the city. We guys, we say, but we are not. We don't hospital here. It's not there to start there for being able to.
It has been decades since then, but the fear persists. At more than 5,000 meters above sea level, it is hard to see if any work is being done in this remote area. But for more than 5 years, a team of Nepali scientists, along with experts from the Army and UNDP, have installed sensors, built a drainage canal, and set up an early warning system to protect people living downstream. The slow draining of Lake Iriga means the communities downstream are safe. But Iriga is just one of 21 such lakes in Nepal, situated in the upper reaches of the Himalayas. Global warming continues to melt glaciers here, posing a threat to people who live close to the country's rivers.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan Patrai, for your presentation. And yes, we are at the risk of the global hazards. And this is what exactly we are looking for. The Department of Hydrology and Meteorology is working in collaboration with the development partners and with Nepal Army and private sector to reduce the global hazard. Works in the lakeside area like Choralpa and Choralpa. And moving forward, I would like to welcome Her Excellency Deputy Secretary General Dr. Elena Mahekova for coming here and adding value to this event. Thank you for coming here and adding value to this event as well.
Once in a while I can sit in the audience, but speaking.
And without taking much time, I would like to start the panel discussion, the main session of today's event, and I would like to invite Mr. Deepak Casey, the program analysis from the climate change and resilience to motivate the panel discussion. Your expertise in extracting the valuable insight from the complex discussion will be really the valuable for this event as well. Mr. Casey, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Vinita ma'am, for taking to this point. I first would like to start directly because we are running out of time. So I would like to request the panelists, esteemed panelists, to be in the dais. I would like to request Karma Tweb from Bhutan. He is the head of the department, Hydrology Meteorology department in Bhutan, and also specialist on glaciology. And similarly, I would like to request Dr. Bapan Fakuddin from GCF. He has been with GCF, and before that he had long working experience in water resources, glaciers, and other areas in the region. Similarly, I would like to request Dr. Sulanga Mishra from WMO, Scientific Officer at Geneva office, looking after the project, also the project Hydrosas, which looks after the region and has extensive experience in Europe, USA, and India in the region. And similarly, I would like to request Dr. Arun Bhaktashrestha, who is the lead in EC mode on strategic group lead, reducing climate and water risks. Yes, thank you very much, all esteemed panelists. And then I would like to request all the audience here in the session, and we'll try to make the best out of it. And the stage has already said, we had a presentation from Dr. Razan from Department of Hydrology Meteorology, and also we had a small video that was basically it was of 2021, around that area where we had just completed the Inza Lake lowering with Department of Hydrology and Meteorology with Nepal RV. So that sets the stage. So I will really get into the questions, and I will try to connect the audience with the questions. So get your one or two questions ready for any of the panelists. Okay, let me go back to Dr. Karma first. You in the Glacier Lake Outburst project in Bhutan back in a decade ago, and then you have extensive experiences on this. What were the strategies that you adopted, and what challenges did you find when Bhutan worked on lake lowering project, and how do you see it? How other countries can replicate on it?
Thank you, Dr. Deepak. Actually, yes. Okay. Yes, I was involved in this similar mitigation project in Bhutan on a glacier lake called Totome from 2008 to 2012. So I was the team leader in the field, and we had a lot of ups and downs in the project actually. But what we have done is the development of the project was quite strategically developed. That is a good thing that we did actually. I'm not speaking on that one because what I'm trying to convey the message is that by the end of that project has been evaluated. So that is the finding of the evaluation team of the project. So one good thing about the project was during the design itself it was strategically developed based on the government priority and also involving all sectors, all the stakeholders down to the community level. That is a good thing I think of the project. The other one is I think that is something like what we developed is we wanted to scale that project to the next level through that project. So that is a scalable project, and that is one of the good strategies to do that one also. That is why we had all this early warning, hazard donation map, beside the lowering of the lake level integrated into the system. So that way I think that is a very approach to a scalable project type in the region. And I think that's one of the first kind of project in our region, in Bhutan. And the important things that we need to keep in mind, we have a lot of challenges in that one, is when you design the project, we have to keep the project designed flexible. The project should have a flexibility component in it. Because during the implementation of the project, one of the biggest challenges that we faced was in the last year of the implementation, we had a lot of issues with mobilizing the manpower required. Unlike the Nepal case, we didn't use machineries in Bhutan. It was done throughout the project, it was done manually. We mobilized around 300 people, laborers from down valley, and taken up to the lakeside and started digging actually. So we had to mobilize a huge number of these workers, and in the last phase, we had tough time to mobilize 300 people. So we had to ask for the army intervention. So that is how we did actually. Had the project been not that flexible, this the project would not have allowed us to do that one. So since we made that sure that during the formulation itself the project was quite flexible, so if plan A does not work, we need to have plan B. So that is what we did actually. So I think in terms of design and all those things, I think we need to be, and very important aspect of the project, I think it should have the government priority, it should have government priority. If we have no priority from the government side, it is impossible to be implemented. That scale of the project. So I think for this, let's stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Karma. Yes, government priority and the capacity building from the community to the all level that made up kind of successful interventions, and that what we also try to replicate in our cases. There are learnings that we did. Dr. Arun, I come back to you. You have been personally also engaged in Chodolpa lake lowering when you were in DHM, and also engaged in the INZA lake lowering part as a partner of UNDP in such a certain area. So what do you think the gap in terms of knowledge or capacity gap you see, as ICIMOD is a kind of knowledge hub agency as well here, and how we can take this knowledge to upscale the actions in the ground?
Thank you. Well, the question is on knowledge gap, but I would like to start with saying that there are gaps. We need to know more, but based on what we know, we can do quite a lot of things. We don't need to wait until we know everything and start looking at it. Now let me get into some of the gaps that probably would be good to know more about. Now, first, in risk reduction, risk reduction, it is very important to understand the risk. And it starts with, in case of glacial risks, starts with monitoring the risk, right? Now, there I think we need to create some innovative approaches, methodologies, cost-effective, to monitor glacial lakes. The traditional ways probably is very time consuming, and with the fast changing pace of glacial lakes, the cryosphere environment, I think we really need to update the status quite frequently. So I think we need utilizing advanced digital technologies, artificial intelligence in that area, and also improve our capacity to model the GLOFs. Right, I mean not meaning future evolution of glacial lake. I think that's a big gap area. So for risk reduction, I think that's very important. Second, we know the high altitude environment is changing very rapidly, and it is not like before. As I said in the previous session, the precipitation pattern is also changing with very intensive precipitation happening and could be triggering GLOF events. And in Sikkim, partly intensive rainfall probably is to some extent to be blamed for the GLOF event, right? So that's an area which we do not understand because we do not have monitoring system for high altitude precipitation. The other big knowledge gap is permafrost, and permafrost degradation is likely to cause a lot of high mountain hazards, including GLOF. And again, in Sikkim, the permafrost decline in southern, moraine, lateral moraine probably was to some extent, responsible. So that kind of area is something which we need to know more. The downstream impact is very important. We care about GLOF because, mostly because of the downstream impact considered. So not only looking at the hazard, but also looking at the risk, the community's infrastructure is very important. Now coming to the mitigation, I think Nepal has experience of two, lake drawdown, lake lowering project using open channel method, using equipment, whereas Bhutan has also done that for Thothami using manual, labor. I think we need to think of some alternate ways. That might be a little bit difficult, These are very time consuming, very resource consuming. And see, there are 21 potentially glacial lakes within Nepal only, right? So at this pace, when are we going to make, Nepal safe against glut? So, only thinking about open channel, construction for lake lowering probably has to be looked at. Some innovation in that area is also needed. And finally, in knowledge gap, I think I would go with Rajan sir. One of his point was on transboundary. That is a big gap area. And we have been taken by surprise in multiple occasions, including 2016, when a completely functioning hydropower project was wiped out in a snap, and we didn't have a clue what was happening, right? So that area needs a lot of improvement. We need to know what is happening in the upstream, and then also probably talk about, early warning system. So these are some of the areas I would like to highlight as knowledge gaps. But again, repeating myself, we can work on those, but then, we can do quite a lot based on what we already know. Thank you, Devak.
Thank you, thank you, Dr. Arun. I don't repeat what you just said to save the time. I come back to Bapun later. Before Bapun, I'll go to Dr. Sulanga. Dr. Karma also mentioned about early warning system, and also what rightly mentioned by Dr. Arun, that the initiatives that we did has a very strong component on early warning. And recently, it's a pleasure having Her Excellency here as well from WMO, that Nepal has been a part of EW for All. And national NMHS, our hydrometer station offices in the region, needs different kind of capacity. If we are really talking about reaching by 2027 EWF for all, because there are a lot of pillars that needs to be worked on, and maybe they have a different pillars that needs to be enhanced. In that context, what is the different strategy that WMO has to enhance the capacity of the NMHS in the region?
Thank you very Hello? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for the question. I will pick up a few words from my previous panelists. We touched upon transboundary being one of the gap, and then we have the knowledge gaps that we are talking about, and capacity gaps. So what are we going to do differently and to make sure that we are reaching our targets on time? So this is known that, our panelists also spoke about this, that we are not able to do much because we do not know what's happening, and we do not know what to do because something got swiped away and we had no idea what was happening. And this is because of the knowledge gap. So is the data not there? That's not the case. The data is there, but it's scattered. It's in different standards. It's not interoperable. So the amount of data that we have is probably enough, but it's so scattered that we are not able to make enough information out of it that's useful to make the kind of warning that we could have. So what we are trying to do here, WMO believes that there is information and there is enough information. Before we start establishing new monitoring stations, it's necessary that we have a look on what's already available. So for this, we try to bring together, we try to make all the information that is out there available through our unified open data policy, to make sure that everybody has an access to this kind of data, but also make sure that all these various data sources, for example, for cryosphere we have the GLIMES, we have WGMS, these are data places, but where the data formats are different, the metadata is completely different, the same glacier is named in 3 different ways in 3 different portals, and this is really not useful. So what we are trying to do is make sure that all of this is standardized, and then maybe we can look at the gaps and we can make sure that we can then start filling up the gaps. But for that we need to have the information of what are really the gaps. So apart from this, we continue to support the members in capacity development, in not just at the national scale but at the regional scale. We heard from our keynote speaker that the disasters, they don't see the boundaries, and we cannot also start working just at the, or we cannot stop ourselves We have these regional centers. WMO believes a lot on the regional approach in solving these kind of issues, and this is what we will continue to support. We have the different centers. They are called the WIPs. Support the countries in filling up the gaps which the countries are not able to produce. So the WIP center will fill these gaps, and at the same time we ensure that these we have projects in different areas. For example, in Nepal and Bangladesh, we just submitted an adaptation fund proposal which will also take into account glaciers, and the idea is that through these projects we are developing enough capacity in the countries and in the region that this is then being sustainable. The project, once the project is over, it's not over, it's really taken over by the country, and then it's continuing. So these are few things we are trying to do at the national scale and the regional scale, and at a high level. What we are also trying to do is making sure that this is heard at the highest level. So for example, we are speaking at events like this, but also at the highest level of WMO meetings. So in the WMO Congress, for example, we have cryosphere as one of the most important topics. So we engage with the members to make sure that this is then placed in their policy documents. It's given highest priority at the national level. So to make sure there is enough funding also, and also political will at the national level.
Thank you very much. Before I go to Bapon, Dr. Karma has to attend another meeting. Do you have one little thing to say, and then you can go?
My apologies, I need to run to Japan Pavilion again at 4:30. But just before I leave, I think the solution, what Dr. Arun has highlighted, we need to look for a viable solution. Lowering the lake level, now it has become a classic. It is a traditional way of reducing the risks. I think in that one, we need to keep in mind the objective of doing all this laborious job. The objective of reducing the hazard is to save lives and property at the end of the day. So if you can get a very good lead time through the early warning systems, I think that is the solution. That will be the future. And in that line, I think WMO is taking a good initiative in that one. Plus also filling up the data gap, the SOF scheme is what I find is a very good solution to it. But we need to scale up these systems and the schemes to meet the required country level. For example, SOFT is trying to close the data gap, but the application of limitation of SOFT is the 200-kilometer radius. For a country like Bhutan, falls well within that one, and we are able to get only one. So that is actually, we need to scale up the scheme, I think. With this, I would like to really take the leave. Sorry, and my apologies for taking early leave.
Thank you, Dr. Karma, for your presence. Thank you so much for your contribution. I come back to Bapun now. So I'm not trying to put you in the spotlight here, but still, when we are talking about so much of things, funding comes in place, and GCF has been really having an impact, result impacts projects in the region as well as in our region as well. But it is said that it takes a little longer time, and then we have less money, or replacement has been the case sometimes. So what do you see these most vulnerable countries which do not really contribute for GHG emission but are the most impacted? So would be any way that GCF might think of expediting the whole process for these most vulnerables?
I think that's quite common questions for. We always get bang on that why GCF is so complex, why it takes so much time, and the process. Obviously, each funding system has its own way of due diligence looking at, and as you may know, that the investment criteria is quite strict as per the board mandate. But we also learned from the GCF1 that we try to set up a one-size-fits-all, and that doesn't actually work for all the countries. So we actually change our modality, bringing actually new instrument, new process like short application process, PSAA, and many other instruments, so which enables to a country like a most vulnerable so that they can actually able to articulate those activities. And also, it's not always true that actually the project is sitting on a pipeline maybe 3 to 5 years, it's not actually either our partner's fault or our fault. It's because the project proposal that are actually in the pipeline is not actually able to meet the certain criteria of the investment. Because climate finance need to be based on huge climate rationale. If you have a development problem, it cannot be fit under the climate problem. So how you articulate those into accessing the financing is quite important. And that's maybe the reason you maybe saw that this time we try to joint merge together with adaptation finance, JEF, and CIF to making sure that how we actually create a incubator versus acceleration, because each fund has its modality. So if you use a JEF financing, how the country can start building a long-term sustainability from the beginning, that okay, I do a piloting using a JEF, but then where does we need to go after the JEF? Does it require another JEF, or does it require a more upscaling if that is a successful with GCF or other MDBs? And how else we can bring the transformation within the project. So bringing not only the program sustainability, but also financial sustainability, which is quite often missing. Because if you think about the grant-based financing, the world will not actually solve the problem. The amount of money we need to solving the adaptation, no one has that money. GCF doesn't have all the money. GCF is only one institution out of many mechanisms. So we need to actually attract the private sector in, how they can actually come and play their role. But that requires an enabling environment, policy, legislation, so that they can actually de-risk their environment. And in that point of view, I think GCF is one of the unique institutions who provide those kind of catalytic financial instrument. You'll not find any single entity or MDBs who can actually provide other than TAs and grants. But here in GCF, you can actually have a grants, highly concessional loan, which could be a 0% and 30 years period of return. And that enables the financer or investor to finding a ROI, which is like a return of investment. Other than that, we also have a guarantor, first loss guarantor, equity, insurance, all sort of instrument. We received a proposal obviously for the glacier glove early warning system, but also it gives me a little bit nostalgic because I was quite part of the Imja Lake evaluation, and I had to actually walk around those areas, 3.5 days walking from Dolce Baja to those areas. So it's just fascinating, but we learned a lot of lessons from that particular project and how actually we customize what lessons we learned, what went wrong, because these are the very complex engineering solution. But at the same time, these are also very sacred as well as nature environment. So even in the UNDP, the ESMF or environmental safeguard is quite high bar. So how we actually meet those environmental safeguard is very complex. And as well as Arun, as well as the Karma mentioned that lowering the lake water is maybe a one-way solution, but what kind of other solution you can bring? What are the other innovation actually going on in the market that actually not even come to the operational level, and how actually you can utilize those things? And I think this is an opportunity for you using GCF financing to first look at the climate rationale, look at what are the detailed risk assessment, and based on the risk assessment, you come up with some innovation solution, and also enable actually the community-led engagement, because you saw that the work that you did actually is not sustaining because many of those things are aging, there's no maintenance budget. So what we learn and how we're going to go forward. And also if there is any opportunity for private sector to engage. And I think we provided some comments. We don't want to disclose everything, what in the proposal as per the disclosure agreement, but we hope to have a good, what we learn, a better project for Nepal to reducing the glove risk reduction. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I go to the audience now to have questions to any of the panelists if you have. Okay, you have a question. I come to you.
Hello. My question is a little bit technical. what is the effect of sulfur dioxide, atmospheric sulfur dioxide, and especially atmospheric silver iodide on glaciers, and what are the detection system you are using in early warning system to detect that?
Okay, I also take the another question so that it will be easier for panelists to just come to the both questions at a time. May I request you to come to closure? I think this is the last point that I can pull. Yes. Okay, here you go.
Namaste to everyone. I'm Badr Sharma and I work for the New York Times as a reporter. I'm from Nepal. My question is a bit straightforward. We heard Nepal is also lowering down the water from the 4 glacier lake. When that process will begin and when we'll get that sort of amount to lower the glacier lake, the remaining 4 glacier lake. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, the first question seems to be bit on the sulfur iodide detections. And okay, so Dr. Arun, is it? Do you think this is something that you could respond, or
sulfur dioxide?
Sulfur dioxide.
No clue actually, honestly. Sulfur dioxide, everything in nature is connected, right? Sulfur dioxide is converted to sulfate. Yeah, a sulfate is a particle, hygroscopic. It changes the cloud property. That's what I learned in my meteorology class. It changes the cloud property, so cloudiness increases. And the potential of droplet formation increases with increase of sulfate in the atmosphere. Of course, it is harmful. It also creates acid rain, right? So now on glacial lake, what does it mean? That is something I would not know. But I know in terms of atmospheric phenomena, it is a pollutant. It creates acid rain, but also changes the cloud properties, right? Silver iodide, I think it is used for artificial cloud seeding. Again, it changes the cloud properties, which is not recommended these days. Artificial cloud seeding is not recommended. But again, on glacier environment and glacial lake, what does it do? I do not have any idea, and I would not even dare to get into that area. Sorry.
Okay.
Maybe I can respond to the early warning side of it. So the way the India Lake has been set up, it's based on the sensor, and you define your threshold. That which threshold could actually trigger the overflow. And once the threshold reach, it actually had a sensor to the community through a microphone as well as loudspeaker. So that actually disseminate the information to the people. And basically, this is set up to if you have a warning, run to the high hill. So there is a designated place for evacuation so that they can actually save their lives. But I don't think that will be able to save their property because the amount of volume of water is massive. Nobody can actually able to build the built environment in that kind of design aspect. So it's like a tsunami, or more than actually tsunami kind of activity. That's how it has been set up. But also we would like to see in the new project actually what innovation we can actually bring and more sustainable and cost-effective solution using the new technology. Those are actually available. Thanks.
I think Bhadra has one question about the status. Maybe I think Dr. Bapun already mentioned that the proposal has been submitted and comments have been already sent back, and this will take further time. Maybe the board, maybe next board, it will be the case, right? If you want to add anything.
Well, so for the GCF proposal, so once actually our partner submitted a proposal, we provide the comments, and then we receive the comments, and then it goes for an interdivisional review. And once it passed through the CIC to what you call like an interdivisional committee, we actually provide a $1.5 million grant to packaging the full proposal. Because this kind of concept need to be attached with detailed risk assessment, detailed environmental safeguard, feasibility study, engineering solution, cost-effective assessment, gender assessment. If there is a heritage and indigenous people is living there, how they are impacted, community-led initiatives, all need to be attached. And it requires some time. So you need if you have a great team in hand, it may take 6 to 8 months. So normally we provide 12 months period to prepare that full package proposal. And then once they're able to submit that full package proposal based on those assessments, it can fly into the board